Maybe, possibly, sort of. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, we are on. Okay, hi, Dennis. Okay, I'm here. So, can you hear me okay? The chat just went all weird. Hey, okay. B major. Alex is here. Hey, good. Hey, guys. No audio. Oh, fantastic. Okay, let's see. Okay, audio is back. Okay, good, because I didn't know what I did wrong. So that was an easy fix. I am trying to find one guy here. I told him I'd hop on a little early. He had some questions. Okay, B major saying you can hear me okay. Uh, there's a guy. Let's see if he's trying to contact me here. Hold on just a second here. Oh, okay, good. Good. Good, you got in. Okay. So Dennis, I don't know if you've been to these live streams before, but the chat feature stays up after the conversation's over. So just be I guess aware of kind of what you're like details wise, what you're putting in the chat. So like okay. So be I wouldn't put in anybody's last name or any like like super specifics where somebody could find unwanted information about a person. And I don't know how much of your situation you want me to share on here with everybody. So I'll just let you go ahead and ask the question that you feel comfortable asking, and then we'll just go from there. Oh, Overcoming Understanding says I'm a moderator again. That's awesome. It must be a default, but I'm more than happy for you to be a forever moderator anytime that you're on. Okay, Dennis says, could you just use the question I sent to you on Facebook? Let me hop over to Facebook. Let's see. Candy's here, and me myself is here, and lots of familiar faces. So that's cool. Okay. I'm trying to find Dennis's question here. Okay, so I'm just going to read the question, and then Dennis, if you want to fill in any details for anybody else, I'll just leave that up to you, okay? So Dennis's question is, how bad does Christmas get with a narcissist husband? The reason I ask is that the phone calls and hang-ups have become more frequent as Christmas gets closer. I still suspect it is my ex-girlfriend calling. I've tried tracing it and no luck. So other people might not be kind of aware of the context and your situation, but as a general rule of thumb, holidays and birthdays tend to be real prime time with narcissists. And it's, there's probably a couple different reasons for it. I mean, I think the main one being that it's a great source of supply for them. So because there tends to be a lot of people around, they can really cause a scene and get a lot of people riled up all in kind of one fell swoop. And so lots of them will do, hurtful things. There was a conversation we had on the last video where this gal had a husband who was doing some really insensitive things, and he would wrap up his some of his children's existing toys and then pretend like they were new toys, and then I guess they would unwrap them at Christmas time and then get all disappointed, and he thought that was hilarious. That's really kind of more on like the mild end, but it's not uncommon for them to surface, and you might not have heard from them, from a narcissist, in years or decades, and then they'll surface at Christmas time acting like there's no problem. They do this because they get the thrill of just kind of ruining somebody else's day. Let me turn off Facebook here because it's chiming at me. So it's a great way for them to ruin a lot of people's time all at once. It's a great way for them to make themselves the center of attention by ruining a lot of people's time. It shows them how important they are. These kinds of things. Let's see. I'm trying to read here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so me myself says there's an app out there called Call Trap, CALLTRAP, and it's an app that you can pay for. It's not a lot, she says, for mysterious callers. It's a service that shows the number calling when they call with a blocked number. Interesting. I would imagine you just get it in the app store, probably, right? Let's see. Kira says, hi, Dana. Hi. Hi. Welcome. Oh, she said, okay. Me, myself says it's called Trap Call. Cecilia is here. She says, I almost didn't make it. Alex says, Dana, did you have time to read my email? I don't know if I have. I get just an absolute ton, an avalanche of email. Can you ask part of your question here, Alex? I should also add that I also have a terrible memory. So like I might have read your email, but I respond to on average of at least 50 messages a day, and it all kind of blurs together for me. Let's see. Do narcs love their birthday or do they hate it? My narc's birthday is coming up. That's a really great question. I'm sure some of them love it because it's attention. I'm sure others of them don't love it because it's kind of that reminder that they're aging. And I'm sure birthdays are harder on some than others, kind of depending on where they are in their life. And if, I think maybe and this is probably maybe more stereotypical, but I would guess that birthdays and that reminder of aging would be harder for female narcissists than male narcissists, but I could be totally off on that. Let's see. Dennis had mentioned, let me scroll back up here. Something about Skype, that you were getting these calls through Skype. I always thought that you had to have like that you had to, have like do like a friend request or whatever it's called on Skype in order to connect with somebody on Skype. So I don't know how they would be calling you if you're not like friends on Skype. And Dennis, so like in your situation, if you think if you think that this is your ex-girlfriend that's calling you because she needs help, I'll just kind of give that little piece of context to it, because I think this situation's a little confusing for other people that don't know kind of who's who and what's what. Let's see. Well, I'm sorry. I cannot read and think and talk all at the same time. So okay, so Dennis, your ex girlfriend, you're concerned that she might be in trouble, and that's why she's reaching out to you. This is a really tough position for you because there's not a lot of power and control that you have over the situation, and that's got to be really tough to have this person who continually reaches out to you, and there's just kind of dead air on the line, and you don't really know kind of what the purpose is of them reaching out to you. You can't really do it. It's very, must be a very, I would think, like powerless type feeling. And, you know, I don't know. Part of me wants to say, you know what? You could Google some phone numbers for domestic violence centers in her area, and if you think it's her, and I would just start talking on the phone and just say, if you need help, if you need to get out, please call these numbers. Please go get help. But this is really disturbing me that you're continuing to call me, and this has been going on for years now, and there's nothing that you can do. So it's almost in a kind of an inadvertent way. If it is her, it's not fair to you, because then it kind of puts this undue burden on you to make the situation okay, and there's nothing that you can do, especially if she's not asking for help and you don't really know where she is, and you're not even really 100% sure it is her. So a part of me, like I said, a part of me would just say, you know what, I can't handle any more of these phone calls where you don't say anything. And it's kind of just like I was just saying, this is a very powerless feeling for me. It disturbs me for months on end. And I would think too, there needs to come a time for you to try to empower her and then cut the line and just say, you know what, here's some numbers to some domestic violence centers. I don't want to cut you off, but this is destroying me, and I can't do that. So I want to help you. I want to know that you're okay. But if you are just calling and you're just standing there and it's dead air, then my mind jumps to worst case scenario, and you're not asking me for help, and I can't do anything with what's going on. And then if need be, you might, and I know it sounds so cruel and so terrible to say, but you can give her my website. There's many other websites out there as well that support different people in domestic violence situations. Encourage her to get more information, and then consider, changing your Skype name, and doing what you need to do in order to stay safe and sane, because you can't have this going on for your whole life and having this emotionally destroy you. That's not fair to you. So I know that you want to help, and I think that's awesome that you do, but there's not a lot of power that or control you have in that. Let's see. Hey, Jasmine. Jasmine's still in Hong Kong. Super cool. People from all over the world. Cecilia was saying her narcissist birthday was on the 27th, and she had a ton of anxiety. Okay, Dennis is saying, from Skype to my cell phone. You may have to just get a brand new cell phone number, Dennis. Yeah, you really, at this point in the game, if this has been going on for years and there's no resolution, I would strongly encourage you, you need to do what you need to do in order to stay safe and sane. And I know, again, I know that that sounds really harsh, but there's, there comes a point where you can do all that you can do, and then you just have to let go. So and that's all any of us can do, you know. Let's see. This is Water says my ex would use her birthday as an excuse to treat me like crap even more than normal. I could see that. There's a lot of narcissists out there that, they already have this like hyper inflated sense of self-worth and entitlement, and I could see how like a birthday would bring out the worst in a person that has those character traits. Um, you know, Even really, even in some normal people. Like I've known a couple my friends and I, for example, we joke. I have one friend that absolutely loves birthdays, and she'll make and anybody's birthday, like her birthday, your birthday, what have you, and it's this ongoing joke where it's a birthday week, and she'll declare it birthday week, and then we'll go out and do stuff on a regular basis throughout that week, and it's a lot of fun, but I could see how, if it was a narcissist that was doing something like that, how that could just be just awful, And I've seen a lot of women that will wear, crowns, and that they'll just really ride that birthday train for as long as they can, and then they just really develop this attitude of, well, I'm a queen, it's my birthday, and I'm just going to treat everybody around me like garbage because it's my birthday. And you know, that's not okay. That's not okay to ever treat anybody terrible for any reason. Let's see. Overcoming Understanding says, yes, one year I made him a cake and he got mad, said I tried to steal his spotlight. Adrian says, hi, Dana, I'm late. Not fair. No, you're not late. I started a little bit earlier just to make sure I could get everything done and to answer a specific question. Um, Let's see. Thomas says, when I left my narc, she would call or have people call. I eventually stopped answering the calls, and family and friends texted. I'd call them back. It stopped the calls after a month. Yeah, so that's really, really common. Just a lot of narcissists, kind of abusive people in general, they play to win. And that's really a foreign concept kind of for the rest of us, because the rest of us, we're in a relationship because we want to have that feeling of mutuality, right? We're trying to like have a relationship with somebody. Narcissists and other, sociopaths, other types of abusive people don't think that same way. For them, it's very much a win-lose situation. It's all abuse. All forms of abuse is all about power and control. And so that's, you see it in little ways. So the whole, them kind of hanging on, this, the calling after you break up, the any type of like degree of stalking or degree of hoovering, or them not moving forward, or then again the hoovering, them coming back around, like, a month later or 6 months later or a year later. That's what that's about. It's power and control. And unfortunately, a lot of victims, because we, especially if you've never come across a person like this, or you've never even heard about this, we mistake that level of attention and interest as that they really care. But it's not. It's just that they're trying to regain power and control. And again, it sets up this whole dynamic of these win lose situations. So, let's see. Oh my gosh. Overcoming Understanding says, mine made flyers of himself on Facebook and had a Valentine's Day contest to win a date with him after we'd been broken up a year. A contest, she says. It was insane. Like he's famous. Yeah, they do that. They really like plastering social media, portraying that they're the victim, and they also move on like at lightning speed. So that's always a warning sign. If you see anybody that's been in any type of relationship, and then like the next week they're putting up pictures of their new relationship and how happy they are and all of that, that's like, healthy people don't move like that. That's way too fast, and it's not healthy. Okay, Dennis says thanks for the answer. You're welcome, Dennis. I'm sorry that you are going through that, and I hope that this ends for you, and I hope that your ex gets the peace and the clarity that she needs. So, But again, like I said, you can give her my website. I have several support groups. She might benefit from just hanging out in there and hearing other people's stories. And if not my support group, there's many other support groups out there. So you might want to just let her know. I think a lot of times just letting people know, in kind of that non-threatening way of, hey, kind of what you're experiencing, I think is problematic. And you might find this interesting. And then kind of just like leading that horse to water and then just letting go. Because they're they're either gonna see it or they're not. And it's hard to just walk away, but it's harder to try to force a solution, really. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down. B Major says, I know you're tired of hearing this, but I relapsed on looking at his email again yesterday. It shows his location and other things I shouldn't know. I want out of this insanity. You know, B Major, I really feel like that seems to be a pretty major part of healing for a lot of people. I did not, well, I guess I did kind of do that a little bit with one guy. But I think it's almost just kind of proving to ourselves that it's real. A lot of people do this. Some people, you know, torture themselves because that's really what you're doing. They torture themselves for months or years. And if you can just try to slow it down and break the pattern, and just say stuff like, I there's no just telling yourself there's nothing that I'm going to see that's going to there's no reason for me to go look there. It's only going to cause me pain. There's nothing that you're going to see that's going to give you any more clarity or give you any more peace. There really isn't. It's only going to make you feel bad. So let's see. Alex says, I wonder if narcissists tend to be born under certain signs. I don't know. I would almost caution against that, even kind of that line of questioning, because it leads into this kind of slippery slope thinking where people tend to think like, and I've heard this from a guy that I know that I would say is a narcissist, where they'll blame kind of their grandiosity and their giant ego on their astrological sign, and they'll say something like, "Well, I'm a Leo, so that's why I think I'm God's gift." Or do you see what I'm saying? Something like that. And so a lot of people are inclined to then think, oh, well, then I will avoid all Leos because Leos are the problem, or fire signs in general are the problem. And then that's what they'll avoid. But the reality is, it's not Leos or fire signs that are necessarily the problem. It's problematic behavior that's the problem. So it's really important that I think people be able to spot abusive behavior, because like I always talk about, it's really important. We all have this idea of what an abusive person looks like or what abusive behavior is, and it's really 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 important that we expand our horizon so we're able to spot it, in a wide variety of settings. And this is something that I struggled with. I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is being able to spot abusive behavior in a wide variety of settings, But again, abusive people can be male or female, young or old, any nationality, any age. They can be a parent, a child, a sibling, a friend, a significant other. You know, they can be a member of your church, somebody you volunteer with. There's abusive behavior is abusive behavior is abusive behavior, and anybody can be a victim just like anybody can be an abusive person. And so it's important for us to be able to spot trouble when we see it and not fall into this idea of, kind of what the rest of society thinks, right? That only victims can be female, or that only abusers can be male, or that abusive situations can only be, a husband-wife dynamic. When reality is they can be any sexual orientation, they can be any religious preference, they can be anything. So, I mean, it's interesting to kind of wonder that stuff, but I would just caution against it because it can really lead to that slippery slope. Hi, Doug. Um, let's see. Doug says, light and love to all. I had an incredibly lonely Christmas because I'm breaking contact with my family, but I've decided that better lonely than abused. Things will get better. So, Doug, I am proud of you for making that decision. That must be difficult to make that decision, I'm sure. But I would encourage you that your options aren't just lonely or abused. Like they're not limited to just those two options, right? So there is that third option of being nourished. And just because you don't have a healthy dynamic or a nourishing dynamic with your family doesn't mean that that's somehow impossible for you. So I would encourage you to make it a goal for, next Christmas, and you've got 12 months, right? To go out and really create your own family, create your own network of people that you feel that connection with. I think you will be really surprised as to how many people out there, holidays are really rough for them and they don't spend time with their family. And, they'd be more than happy to connect with other people and do things among friends. So, you know, meetup.com, one of my favorite websites. It's a fantastic place to go to meet a wide variety of people, and ideally a wide variety of like-minded people that are going to be kind of like your surrogate family, because you are a really, really fantastic man and you have a lot to offer. And I think you just need to find your people, find people that appreciate you and that they see in you kind of what we all see in you, and then report back. So report back. That's the challenge that I throw out to you for 12 months from now. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll down. Okay, B Major says I'm having a hard time with not having anything to do for New Year's tomorrow. So, um, well, you've got 24 hours, a little over 24 hours to think about something. And again, it's really kind of what you make of it. So, um, and I say that I was supposed to possibly go spend time with a friend tomorrow night. I don't know if that's going to pan out, but this kind of goes back to really learning to embrace and enjoy your own company, becoming your own best friend. And I know that it's, maybe not the same as having, a significant other, but, a fun or interesting thing that you could do would be to do like a year in review and write out all of the high points of the past 12 months, and use the time for some reflection. I think that's really some time that's really well spent. So again, meetup.com. I'm sure there's tons of stuff going on that's in New Year's in your area. Let's see. Oh, Peace Pom Pom is back. Hello. That's such a cute name. Okay, King Koopa asks, how can I stop obsessing after finding out what they are? What exactly are you obsessing over? Let's start there. Okay, so it looks like Doug is big into video games and Cecilia is big into video games. So, I don't play video games, mainly because I like I don't know, when I got old. I used to play video games all the time when I was younger. It was so much fun, but you know, I can't, I don't have I can't track. There's too much going on for me. So give me like Tetris any day of the year, or Dr. Mario. I loved that game too, and I'm in. But that's something. So like they have like PlayStations. You guys can play video games with each other, can't you? Like can't you join different teams and people play all across the world? That might be something that you guys want to get into. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just saying. Let's see. Okay, I was just gonna ask King Koopa about your question, so I'm glad you responded. King Koopa says, I'm obsessing over the fact that he is a narcissist and I'm still in disbelief. I'm in the acceptance phase. Well, okay. It may make it easier. I think a lot of people struggle with the terminology because it's a label, right? And so a lot of people, they're like, well, I need to make sure that this person is this label because if they're not in their mind, it's this idea of, well, but if they're not a narcissist, then maybe they could change, and so then they kind of hold on to this hope. But I would encourage you to if it's easier for you, to consider setting down the label and just realizing that it's not a healthy or a toxic type of relationship. And that right there is enough to leave. Like, a person doesn't need to be have a full blown personality disorder in order for that to not be a healthy relationship for you to be in. And I talk about this all the time too, but here's the thing with personality disorders is it's not a hard science. So a person can go to multiple clinicians and get multiple diagnoses. And one clinician may say, yes, this person is antisocial or a narcissist. The other one might not say that. And so for victims, that can lead to a lot of insecurity and doubt and wondering. And that's why I encourage you guys to kind of broaden your radar beam for like what problematic behavior is. So if a person's being abusive in any way, shape, or form, verbally or emotionally, which get this term gaslighting, or the person's denying what's really going on, when they're spinning things, when they're lying, when they're manipulating, all of that in and of itself is enough to leave a relationship. So it doesn't need to be name calling. It doesn't need to be physical abuse of any kind. It doesn't need to be sexual abuse. It doesn't need to be financial abuse. It doesn't need to be that very obvious devalue stage. That none of that even needs to happen in order for it to be an abusive relationship or for you to leave. So if it's not, and so then the kind of the question is, well, then how do you know, right? How do you know if this, does this relationship have potential, or is this a healthy relationship? And the answer is by paying attention to how you feel. And so you really want to be in a relationship on a scale of fulfillment from like a 0 to 10, 10 being like you're excited, you're enthused, you're feeling nourished. Think about something that you really, really enjoy doing, like surfing, or that one person, a friend or a person in your past that you get excited to see. It's that kind of feeling. Like that would be a 10 type feeling, right? Something that really energizes you, really juices you. You ideally want a relationship to be on average of about a 7 or higher on average. Ideally, when you're first dating somebody, shoot for like that 9 or 10. If you're having to justify or minimize or rationalize bad behavior, if you're telling yourself, well, it's because this person had a bad childhood, or it was because they were drinking, or it was because they're under a lot of stress. If you're finding yourself justifying behavior, if you're finding yourself justifying behavior that you would be horrified to know that somebody else was experiencing, like if you were to find out that your best friend or your daughter or your child, your son, was being treated that way by their significant other, then that's a sign that you're in a bad relationship. So maybe that would be kind of like a good rule of thumb. If the advice, asking yourself, what advice would you give to somebody else? So let's see. Rosie says, wait a minute, I missed something here. How do I forgive? I feel like he not only manipulated me, he got free money from me. Let me scroll back up because I missed something. Okay, so still trying to find this question about forgiveness. Okay, Rosie says, "Hi Dana, my ex narc owes me 20 grand, but I want to go no contact. Should I forgive the loan?" Um, he borrowed 20K. Well, okay, so here's the deal. Oh, and he's paying back whatever he wants. He will continue to do this and he will continue to drag that out as long as he possibly can because it's his way of keeping power and control over you and over the situation. If if it's not going to put you in a financial bind, okay, so let's just kind of brainstorm some options here because I went through something similar. Steve owed me about 10 grand, and he was giving it back to me like a couple $100s at a time. He was mailing me a check. This went on for over a year, and it was incredibly traumatic because every time I checked the mail, it was just that reminder of him, and it was awful. So maybe if you could see about him setting up a payment through the bank. See, the thing is, he's not. We're okay. So I'm trying to be rational about an irrational situation, is what it is, because he's not going to want to do this because he's going to want to keep power and control over you in the situation. An idea would be that you could mention, you know, that him having payments going directly to the bank. He's probably not going to do that. If I were you, if he's still kind of like payments are trickling in, I would encourage you to figure out a way that if you can handle kind of being re-triggered by seeing that kind of stuff every single month, what you would need to do to stay safe and sane. So one example would be that you could try to like either reframe your understanding of the repayments instead of letting this really really bother you. Just you could view it as this is my monthly reminder that this person does not need to be in my life because this person is not for me and this is my reminder. Or if you decide to walk away from the money, you just telling yourself, you know what, this is tuition at the school of hard knocks, and just call it good. And frankly, it's really some of the best money that you'll ever spend if you can squeeze out all of the lessons from this. I really wouldn't look at this as a loss. We're not taught about these people. Kind of the only way to understand any of this is through living it. So, it's really kind of whatever you feel that you need to do in order to stay safe and sane. And then, realizing he's going to fight tooth and nail to continue to keep contact. I would prepare yourself for hoovering and, you know, and not be surprised if he tried to use yet some other tactic in order to maintain control, because this is what they do. They hang on. So, Anna, I just saw a question, had asked about forgiveness in general. And so I wanted to discuss this. So, my whole philosophy on forgiveness is that forgiveness is very much like respect, and that it's something that's earned and not just blindly given. I know that's not a very popular view of forgiveness, but so let me explain a little bit here. The reason I say that is because the word forgiveness, the way that we understand this in the English language, leads to a lot of that kind of slippery slope thinking where there's the whole forgive and forget, and people, especially abusive people, really, really manipulate that word. Because in our country, in our context of this word, it's this idea of if we forgive a person, that somehow means that everything is okay. So there's a lot of damage that's done by the kind of misapplication of this word. And so I think for me, anyhow, it's easier to kind of forget the word and then hold on to the concept that the word is supposed to represent. And so the concept has more to do with the conscious decision of, I'm not going to let this destroy my life, and I'm going to release anger over this. And so how you do that is you make that decision that you're not going to let it ruin your life. And then anytime you really start feeling anger and that bitterness seeping in, because that's what will destroy you, right? Is to take that and to channel it into making a good life for yourself, and to consciously, something just floated past my face. I don't know what that was. That was really weird. Making that decision to do that. So it helps to get really clear on like what a good life would mean for you, and then using all of this energy, because that's what that anger and resentment and bitterness is, kind of becoming this emotional alchemist and turning that energy into something positive, because that's really where your power is going to be in all of this. So you're going to hear a lot of other people say, well, you really need to forgive this person, especially if the abusive person is like family. And because a lot of times, abuse happens behind closed doors, so people don't see what's really going on. You can decide, you can let them know, like, I am not okay with using that word or with that terminology, because people misunderstand. I saw this time and time and time again at the domestic violence shelter. Is a lot of victims would go to church, they would embrace this concept of forgiveness. Their abusive partner would manipulate the hell out of them, with their concept of forgiveness, and they would be like, "Oh, well, I thought you forgave me. I thought you were so Christian, and so what? You think you're better than me, and so what? If you really forgave me, you would give me a second chance, or if you really forgave me, you would quit bringing all of this up, or if you really, do you see how that goes? And so that's why it's really important for us to have that clear ground, and to let people know, you know, uh, if you're not truly sorry for what you've done, and you're not taking massive action to correct the damage that you've done, then I'm not going to forgive you. But I will decide to release anger towards you in the situation, and I'm going to invest it instead into making a good life for myself. And you can explain it that way to other people. I think a lot of times, once you explain kind of, once you deconstruct the word forgiveness or the concept of forgiveness, other people are more inclined to, agree, and they'll be like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense than allowing this abusive person back into your life, because that's not healthy. It's disrespectful to yourself. Okay, so let me scroll up here. um Oh, okay. Yeah, Doug saw that thing float by my face too. Yeah, that was weird. He said, I thought that was in my house. No, I don't know what that was. I'm I'm guessing it's probably a very large dust bunny. So, um okay, here's a question here. Okay, so B Major says, mine had a major sex addiction. He had recently looked to men, which I would have never guessed. A lot of them do that. Um, and some people are mentioning in here about sex addiction and, um, porn addiction. Um, you know, and yes, not all narcissists or abusive people have a sex addiction. I think probably the vast majority of people, when they go to seek out understanding kind of what they're going through in an abusive situation, it tends to be because something really, really major happened. And cheating tends to be kind of one of those more like major things that brings people to therapy, or it brings people to the internet to try to make sense of what's going on. So, there's probably a lot of people here that have had, their partner has cheated on them dozens, if not hundreds of times. But yes, not all narcissists or sociopaths are necessarily sex addicts. However, a lot of them do have addictions. They do have very impulsive, compulsive type behaviors. It's just, they're always kind of chasing that thrill. And so, you know, they don't, and they don't value, they don't have morals. I mean, there is no right or wrong for them. For them, it's more about gaining power and control over a situation. And so, and because they feel entitled to do whatever they want to do, it's really kind of not like, they would have this feeling of, oh, my hair's caught in my earring. They wouldn't have this feeling of, oh, I really shouldn't do that, because in their mind, they, you know, they're entitled to do it. That they can justify anything. It's really wild. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let's see. This is a major one. Stephanie, I need to scroll up here. The part of the question is, I'm so worried for her and the child, but there's no way I can contact her without putting everybody in danger. I'm having terrible nightmares almost every night about him killing her and me not being able to stop him. What do I do? Let me see if I can scroll up here and see what I missed. Okay. Okay, sorry. Here's the beginning of the question. My ex is very dangerous. He was very sexually violent. He drugged me for months. He threatened to kill me and probably tried to as he broke into my apartment, but I had just moved out, thank God. We were together for 3 years and he had a girlfriend the whole time. Not that I was aware of it. They are still together and just had a baby. I'm so worried for her and the child, but there's no way I can contact her without putting everybody in danger. That's a really tough situation. And Stephanie, this is not this is not your cross to bear. Okay. If she's been with him, and it sounds like she's been with him for a long time, she knows he's most likely doing the exact same thing to her. And it's hard. It's hard to it's hard to let go, and it's hard to walk away, especially when we are concerned that people are in danger. You could, since there's a child involved, you could consider calling child protective services and having them go and do a welfare check. You can do this anonymously. That might be a good way to go. So that's really kind of all you can do, because you definitely don't want to endanger yourself. Another thing you could do would be to contact child welfare and say that, let them know, yeah, he was incredibly violent. You're afraid he's going to be violent with her. And if they do a welfare check, if they could maybe somehow somebody to have them talk to her about signs of an abusive relationship. And 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 that's and I know, and I hate that. I hate it too, that's kind of all we can do, but we can't. We can lead a horse to water, but we can't make him drink. And some people don't they don't learn, and they do end up getting killed. And it's really frustrating, and it's sad, and it's all of that. But there's a lot of different reasons why people stay in these dynamics, and that's what's so hard, is they cannot or will not see that there's a problem. Okay, Sheba asks, how many narcissists are female? That's a great question. Statistically speaking, statistically speaking, the statistics are, I would say, wildly inaccurate, because the the vast majority of narcissists do not come in for therapy, and the vast majority that do tend to go to jail would fall more under the category of antisocial. And so the vast majority of people that tend to go to jail are men, not women, especially for violent crimes. Women tend to be let off. And it's one of those things, like, society has a hard time kind of getting past the, you know, the appearance of an abusive person. It's this idea of, oh well, she's a little old lady, or oh well, she's so young and tiny, she's so little, how could she do any damage? That kind of thing. Or oh, she's really attractive, so therefore she must be good. People have this idea of that abusive people kind of like are like the bad guys in movies, right? And so we all tend to think that we can spot abusive or problematic people by their appearances, and we can't. So the stats are, I would say, personally, I would say that it's roughly 50-50. Just kind of on my YouTube channel, my views are about 65% female and like 35% male, which I honestly, I am a little surprised by that, because I'm surprised that it's even that high for men, because men, the only education that's out there for domestic violence and for abuse is geared towards women, and it's geared towards women that are in physically like obviously physically abusive relationships, like bruises on their face. And so I'm really shocked that anybody is even finding these videos, that they're even having the foresight to even look up some of this, because I didn't at all. I mean, I, not to say that, just because I didn't do it just doesn't mean that other people won't, but it's surprising to me that that people are thinking to do that. So I consider myself to be pretty tech savvy, and I did not even think to look to the internet. And I've actually had a handful of people that have said the same things. They're like, they were looking up other terms, they just happened to stumble across these videos, and then it gave them the clarity. But yeah, so there's a lot of education for men that needs to go on out there. Talon asks, are there a higher percentage of gay narcissists? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think anybody really truly knows the accurate numbers, because it's not an accurate sampling of statistical data that's being done. Okay, M asks, can somebody explain the differences between borderline? I'm guessing you're asking borderline personality disorder and not bipolar. Borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. So, okay, narcissism tends to be, narcissists tend to be very grandiose. They tend to be very selfish, very entitled, they tend to lack empathy, lack remorse. It's this attitude that it's all about them. And, and so you have what's considered like a cluster B personality disorder grouping, okay? And within that grouping, you have several personality disorders. You have narcissism, you have borderline, you have antisocial, and you have histrionic. And it's kind of anymore, by and large, a lot of, I'm a psychiatric nurse. I used to work in a domestic violence shelter. I do not come across that many people that are diagnosed as narcissists anymore. If anything, it's more on the spectrum of antisocial. And so a lot of my red flags, there's a lot of red flags that talk about, antisocials, which they used to be called sociopaths or psychopaths. And the difference between sociopaths and narcissists are that sociopaths have a pattern of really like exploiting people, and they tend to have a criminal history. They tend to have a history of conduct disorders before the age of 15. These are the ones that tend to be in and out of prison, and they are more known for being charming. So I guess what we're calling more like covert narcissists would fall under more of the category of a sociopath. So Bill Cosby, sociopath. All sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. And I know that that's really confusing, but it's like sociopaths take narcissism to the next level, and they use and abuse people, whereas there are some narcissists that just have a blinding degree of selfishness, which is still abusive because they can't relate effectively to people, but they don't, they don't steal money. They don't, it's not to such an extreme as a sociopath. I always encourage people to not get caught up in the terminology. Knowing that a person is toxic is enough reason to leave a situation. A lot of people get caught up in wanting that clarity on the terminology, and that can be a crazy making thing in itself. But okay, so I digress. So to answer your question, with borderline, so men tend to be diagnosed more as narcissists and antisocials. Women tend to be diagnosed more as borderline or histrionic. And so, one of the more defining features for a borderline personality disorder is extreme highs and lows of emotion, which a lot of narcissists also tend to have, right? And it tends to be a lot of attention seeking kind of behavior, and they can tend to, they often they go from angry to suicidal to being okay. They tend to have extreme emotions rapidly. Histrionic, there's not a whole lot of women out there. That's not a very like popular or common diagnosis. It's given, but it's not. An example of kind of a histrionic type woman would be like Peg Bundy from Married with Children, if you remember that. You could even make the case for like Marilyn Monroe. So somebody who's overly sexual, like that is her identity, is more kind of in that cluster, but or I'm sorry, in that disorder. But cluster B personality disorders as a whole, these are like the real high drama. It's the cluster is characterized by being erratic, dramatic, and emotional. And so these are kind of like your problem personality disorders. A lot of people with borderline personality disorder, if they do have it, they can be treated. They can be treated fairly effectively with there's a therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy. It's basically it's Buddhism. It's a form of mindfulness that's taught, and it helps to slow down that emotional. It helps to for them to regain control over their emotions. It helps them to develop coping skills, and it's oftentimes very effective. But like anything else out there, a person actually has to want to change. So it's you know kind of up to the person as to where they are with wanting to change. Um, let's see. Yeah, M. Fisher says histrionics are unwelcome even in mental hospitals because they end up turning everybody into in the hospital against everybody else. Yeah, that's kind of a borderline thing too. Like the whole pot stirring is really really common. Just drama, 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 drama. Um, so kind of just if a person's manipulative, if they lie and if they're manipulative, that alone is a reason enough to just get out of there, because you can't have any type of healthy relationship with a person you can't trust, like bottom line. And you can't have a relationship with a person that doesn't have open and honest and sincere solutions oriented type communication. Like if those factors aren't present, then there's no relationship there. It doesn't matter if they have a personality disorder. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. It's just those factors. They could be the nicest person in the world and the most balanced person, but if they don't have those, if they can't, you know, have an open and honest and sincere communication, then there's nothing. And if you don't trust them, there's nothing. There's nothing there. There's no relationship. That's a great question. Okay, so Ralph Sanchez asks, so do we all have traits? Yes. Okay, so these are all personality disorders, right? All of these traits are human traits. So we all have them. Where it gets significant is in like to the degree and the frequency. And so really in order for a person to be diagnosed as like a personality disorder, it's that's a very rigid approach. They have a very fixed personality, and so they tend to not be aware that there's any issue there. A lot, but again, I mean, this is, I'm talking really within the cluster B personality disorder here. narcissists and antisocials tend to not ever see that they have a problem. They think everybody else has the problem. A lot of borderlines or histrionic type people do acknowledge that they have a problem. Their life is unbearable. I mean, they live on these extreme emotions all the time. It's got to be exhausting. And so, they tend to want off. They want off of that roller coaster. And so, the Kinga is asking about, have I ever seen anybody who's made progress following DBT? Therapist says it's 1 in 10,000. No, I wouldn't say it's that much. I have seen, I've seen lots of people progress significantly with DBT. And so, but again, it's personality disorders. There is no like accepted spectrum of personality disorders. So if a person, you could have, 10 people sitting on this couch here and they could say, okay, they all have borderline personality disorder. Well, one person might have it to a very severe degree where their way of getting attention and significance is by suicide attempts. They're cutting, they're taking pills. They, on average, they're in the emergency room once a month, right? Like they'd have like a more, they are borderline and they have their extreme borderline. But then you have another person that might just really have some coping problems. And they might have been hospitalized for suicidal attempts or anger related issues like once every 5 years, that kind of thing. So, and of course, I mean, there's other disruption that occurs in their life, but I'm just picking that because it tends to be the more major kinds of things. So because personality disorders aren't measured on that spectrum, it's really hard to say. But yeah, I've seen lots of really awesome improvement with people. I think we all could benefit from DBT because, like I said, it's mindfulness therapy, is what it is. It's Buddhism, and if you look at Buddhist monks and nuns, they're like the most chill people ever. So they have a really good grip on their emotions. They don't get rattled or ruffled by life, and so there's a lot of that we can, regardless of what religion a person is. And personally, I think Buddhism is a philosophy, not really a religion, but there's a lot that can be learned from that. Okay, this is a great question. Julie asks, do people with a narcissistic or antisocial personality disorder ever commit suicide? They do, but it they tend to threaten it a lot more for manipulation than they actually follow through with it. So, and I would say that if they do, if anybody, right, if anybody is threatening to commit suicide, I always encourage people to take it seriously. There's nothing that you can do, okay, except to call 911. That would be like the most responsive thing that anybody can do. Call 911, take it seriously, be like, so and so is threatening suicide, this is where they live, can you please get over there and do a welfare check? And they will go check on them. So a lot of manipulative people, if they're not getting their way, if their target is trying to go no contact, or they're trying to leave the situation, it's not uncommon for them to threaten suicide and to say, well, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. And there's this whole cycle of different manipulations they throw out in order to try to regain power and control. So that's that. Let's see. Ugh, gosh. M says meditation and Bikram yoga, which is the hot yoga, which I love, has helped me so much getting over my narcissist. However, a few weeks ago, she just joined the same yoga school and it got inside my head. Yes, that is really frustrating and unfortunate and not a coincidence, I am sure. So I would strongly encourage you to join a different yoga school if you can at all possible, because this is it's a hoovering attempt. And she's there with the intention of either reopening contact or just being that thorn in your side. Either way, you don't need the stress of that. You're there for yoga, right? And for meditation, and not to worry about this, highly manipulative, problematic person bothering you. So Stephanie asks, what does DBT stand for? It stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. Let's see. Overcoming Understanding asked, Dear Dana, please explain how somatic narcissists appear to be sex addicts, but they don't view sex the way healthy people view it. It's all about thrill and control. I think you just did a great job of explaining it. So there's these different subcategories of narcissists. These are not official subcategories, so you're not going to find them like in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health, and that's where all mental illness and personality disorders are categorized and cataloged. It So unofficially speaking, there's several different types of narcissists. There's the overt, there's covert, there's cerebral, there's somatic, there's malignant, and so really, when we're talking about, and I don't know if it was Sam Vaknin that came up with the different subtypes. If it is him, I really think that it's quite brilliant. And I think that I wish the terminology would move more that way, because the common denominator with all of this is narcissists. You have like overt narcissist, you have covert narcissist, you have malignant narcissist. And so really what those terms are describing, overt narcissist is the kind of person that we think of when we think of a narcissist, the very grandiose, kind of Kanye West, Donald Trump kind of over the top, they want their name in gold, kind of people, right? Which they may or may not be problematic, but they have a blinding degree of entitlement and selfishness. And they any little threat to their ego and they freak out, right? Covert narcissists are the more charming, superficially glib kind of narcissist, which really are more of like the sociopaths of the world. So like your Bill Cosby's, your we were talking about Jodi Arias the other night. I would say that she really is borderline, even though she actually murdered somebody. I would still just kind of my 2 cents on it. I would say that she's more borderline because it's, you know, very, very poor emotional regulation, and she doesn't have a pattern of this kind of behavior, which sociopaths tend to have problematic behavior for a long time. She doesn't have that. And I'm not saying that she is or isn't, but she's definitely somewhere in that cluster B. The malignant narcissists are more of kind of like the the psychopaths, which is not a term that's in use anymore, which it should be, because I think it's important to distinguish between that. So it used to be that you had sociopaths and you had psychopaths, and they were two different things. They were two different diagnoses. Well, the DSM is, like I said, it lists out all of the different mental illnesses and personality disorders. It's more for categorization and systemization. So if a person's going to one hospital or one doctor, and billing codes, that's probably a big piece of the puzzle, is billing codes. So you'll have, I can't think offhand, but you might have like a billing code for like, bipolar disorder, and it's like 296.60. That's the code. And so when they go to get reimbursed for insurance, that's what it is. There was a lot of overlap. There is a lot of overlap between the different diagnoses and all of that, and so they're trying to separate out and get more clarity on each one. Well, like I said, you used to have sociopath and psychopath, and those two merged under the label of antisocial, which is also another terrible term, because antisocial to a lot of people have this idea of, well, antisocial means that they don't like people, right? They think it means more like asocial, but it's not. It means more of that they are like anti-society, that they don't abide by morals and values and ethics is really kind of what it is. So, so before the distinction was more like sociopaths were, kind of not interested in playing by the rules of society, more for like societal reasons, so more for like nurture type reasons. Like society kind of made them this way, like something happened to them in their childhood, like an abusive home or these kinds of things. That's how this is at least one theory on it. And then psychopaths, the thought was, well, that that they're that way more for nature, that they were just kind of born that way, that they may or may not have come from an abusive home. Nobody really knows why they're kind of off, but they're off and they're dangerous. And, you know, so, that's all confusing stuff, but interesting stuff. So let's see. Okay, I got another question here. My ex and his whole family were manipulative scum. They use anybody to get what they want. They discard you with no remorse. Yes, there's a lot of people out there that are like that, and it's really sad and scary. And I'm glad that he's your ex, because not good. Oh, okay. Overcoming understanding says you didn't finish. LOL. Oh gosh, what were we even talking about? What were we even talking about? Remind me what we were talking. Oh, sex addiction and somatic narcissists. I'm sorry. You're right. I am so sorry. Um, so so the different types of narcissists tend to get their ego fed through different ways. So cerebral narcissists tend to get it fed in more cerebral, or kind of like, thinking type ways. So advanced college degrees, or they might use very grandiose language. I don't know if I think Sam Vaknin considers himself to be a malignant narcissist, but he's definitely cerebral in many ways. He's, incredibly intelligent, and uses a very advanced vocabulary. So, kind of more on the cerebral level there. Somatic narcissists tend to be very, very highly sexual, and so that's how they really gratify themselves and get their ego fed. So a lot of times when you're with a somatic, somatic meaning body, so they're very body oriented. So these are the ones that tend to work out at the gym all the time and spray tan, and they're tend to be very hypersexual. It's That's their way of feeling important and getting their ego fed. So, you know, um, and it's not that. So one of the comments here is, well, they can switch though from somatic to cerebral and back again. So these are just kind of broad brush categories. And all of this, like somebody had mentioned earlier, this is all kind of within the realm of human behavior. It's just taken to an extreme. And so, just like any of us can go from, maybe we're really hypersexual at some point in our lives, and then we go to college, or maybe we go to college and then we become hypersexual, right? Or something happens that, you know, it, there's periods in our life where we might be more extreme in certain ways than others. And so a person can have a lot of these characteristics. Like I would say, my ex, I would say both of my exes were kind of more on the sociopathic side of the spectrum, but they, you know, Jack was incredibly intelligent and very sexual, very hypersexual. He was the one that I discovered was on Craigslist and had put up, dozens of, postings looking for sex for men, for women, for swingers, for, all kinds of stuff. It was really wild. Let's see. Somebody had asked if we'd seen the interview with Spartan Life Coach and Sam Vaknin, that it was strange. I did not see it. Um, I really don't watch any other channels on narcissists or narcissism. Somebody had asked earlier, they're like, when do you relax? So, and I don't. So like that's my problem. That's why I don't. I have to, because I do this 8 hours a day, and then I do this on my free time, and it's something that I really really enjoy. But I tend to watch totally just different stuff on YouTube at night to just unwind. So I'm so out of the loop. So I'm glad that it's you guys letting me know, hey, you should watch this video, or hey, have you seen so and so, or that kind of keeps me up to date with all of it, because it's just it's too much, it's too heavy for me to to work with this and to do my support groups and all the emails, or as many emails as I can get to, and do the live streams and watch it on YouTube. So I opt to not watch it on YouTube, because I do what I enjoy, and this is what I enjoy. So okay, this is a great question. So Kiki asks, hold on a second. I've got my coffee here. Kiki asks, was your relationship shorter with Steve than Jack? Were you able to see the signs better the second time? Great question. My relationship was shorter, but not because I saw the signs. So when I first began dating Steve, this was about a little over 2 years after Jack and I had broken up, and I had known Steve for several years. He was married, and he was one of those people. I wasn't looking to date a married man or to get involved with a married man or any of that. So he was one of those guys. I thought he was good looking, but like not gonna go after that. Well, it was just kind of through a series of events. He kind of, long story short, had told me that he was unhappily married. He was leaving his wife. She was the manipulative one. Blah blah blah. And I believed him. And so we got involved. And that first week, my night terrors and anxiety kicked back up again. But at the time, see, here's the thing. At the time, I didn't know why I was having. I didn't. So when Jack and I broke up, I had a period there. I don't even know how long it lasted, because it was awful for like the first maybe 2 or 3 months, and then it was like sporadic after that with like night terrors and anxiety. I didn't know why I was having that reaction. Because everybody else was treating it like, well, it was a bad breakup, and I kind of felt like I'm overreacting. I don't know what my problem is. I have suspicions that I think he was trying to poison me, but I don't even know if I am like paranoid for thinking that. I don't even know if that's reasonable. I don't really know why I even feel like that. And so I had a lot of just kind of, messed up think I didn't know. And so when, fast forward, I still didn't know. I went to a couple different therapists and still didn't know what was going on. I had no validation. Fast forward a couple years, I began dating Steve. Well, he was very charming. Everybody loved him. And, everybody that knew us, they were like, oh, this is so great. You guys are together. You're like our two favorite people. This is so fantastic. You guys are dating. You guys both deserve somebody that, you're just so perfect together, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was, that again, that first week, those night terrors kicked in, and all of my friends, and of course here I am doubting myself, because I'm like, well, is it me or is it him? And I'm kind of seeing some red flags, but I'm not really sure. Do I have issues with men? Do I have issues with commitment? Like, why am I feeling this way? And all my friends were like, Dana, he's a really good guy. You can trust him. You've got issues because of Jack. It's understandable, but he's a really good guy. And I and it's I don't of course I don't blame them for any of that. I knew better deep down. I didn't trust my judgment. And so that was the big lesson in all of this for me, was to learn to trust, learning to trust and rely on your judgment, because there's no shortage of well-intended bad advice out there. And if something's off. We may not want to know. We might really want to believe that this really amazing, super charming, funny, intelligent, great person is what, we want, that they are everything that we really want them to be. But we have to go into things with our eyes open. And so when my relationship ended, is gosh, when did it end? It was short. It was like 6 months or so with Steve. Total whirlwind, moved way, way crazy fast. That ended. I don't quite, we were arguing about some stuff, and it was he'd concocted this whole story. Kind of long story short, he ended up leaving. We had moved. He'd sold and given away everything in his life. He divorced his wife, everything. Ended up leaving and then going back to her. And I really think it had a lot to do with the fact that he couldn't get a job out here, that he was a fairly high ranking in his field, and we had moved to Michigan, and so he would have to start at the bottom of the totem pole. And I think that was, I really think that's what it was, that his ego could not take that, and we didn't have a TV, which I know like sounds really crazy, but I was not a big I still am not a big TV watcher. I don't have a TV. I haven't had one in 7 years, and I think that was, you know, I think that was a bit, I mean, it's just, that sounds so petty and stupid, but like that's the kind of stuff that's part of it. So I know now it's been a lot of lessons learned. The biggest thing for me has been in finding support groups. And here's the reason I always encourage, you know, finding support groups. There's a lot of insight that can come from hearing the stories of other people, because it really helps to cut through that cognitive dissonance that we all have. We all have it. When you hear somebody else's story. And that's one of the reasons I'm so open about sharing my stories, is because it's a lot easier for people to examine certain things, or I share stories from other people that are okay with me sharing their stories. Because it's easier for people to say, hey, you know what, I experienced that, I didn't realize it was problematic, but now I'm seeing that it's problematic. So it's easier for us to kind of, it's the whole, like, what does it say in the Bible, like it's easier for us to see the splinter in somebody else's eye than it is to see the log in our own. So that's kind of the benefit of support groups, because you can see the problematic behavior, distancing yourself and being that kind of neutral third party there. Let's see. Talon, you are full of fantastic questions tonight. Talon asks, why do we feel so bad about the pain that narcissists cause us? Well, I think there's lots of different reasons for that. You know, a lot of victims. Well, I mean, there's so many different reasons for it. So, like when they're in the relationship, a lot of victims feel like, you know, that they're the problem, right? That like they're the narcissist, or that they need to somehow change, or and I get that question all the time, because that's part of emotional abuse. That's part of verbal abuse, is spinning it around on the person, and saying, you know, well, you're doing this, you're making a big deal out of nothing, or, you know, anybody else would be so lucky to have somebody like me. And all of the gaslighting and all of the manipulation, it's such a slow kind of insidious process that it's hard to really see it coming, especially if you're not looking for it. And so you know, there's a lot of pain that victims go through with that, with being blamed for basically being blamed for the pain that we're in. And then we have the pain once we actually get out of the relationship, because odds are we've made this person our whole world, right? And so then there's this period where it's incredibly lonely, and it's incredibly, you know, there's just this feeling of like, you know, desperation, and just sheer just desolation, where you're just so alone. And so a lot of people have a hard time leaving, and that's because all of these relationships, they want you to build your whole life around them, make it all about them, and isolation is the number one tool for abusive people. And so then there's the pain of that, right? Then there's the pain of being alone, and then there's the pain of being potentially re-victimized by well-intended but not familiar with abuse therapists or friends or family, who will spin it, you know, back onto the victim, and they'll be like, well, why did you stay? Or, well, I guess it's your fault for staying. And so then there's kind of that re-victimization, where the victim feels even more alone and less supported. And then they have all of this guilt and shame, and coupled with like depression and anxiety. So there's a lot of really, really intense feelings that are going on there. So, yeah, it's a lot, and it can drive a person to suicide. It really, really can. So it's, if you're going through end of one of these relationships, it's really important that you realize this is not your fault, that there are certain things that made you vulnerable. Okay. And that's something that I'm hoping to explore in a later series. But it's not your fault. Nobody deserves this. And friends and family, and even a lot of therapists that are not highly skilled in emotional abuse, they're doing the best that they can do with the knowledge that they have, and they don't understand it, is what it is. So, okay, Kinga asks, what is your experience with warning the next supply? I'm stuck there. I have no urge to do so, but I would like to hear your feedback on it. I think it depends on what kind of more of the context of the situation. So, if you feel like warning the person is going to put you in danger in any way, shape, or form, I definitely would not do it. You know, Steve and I, his wife that he went back to, she and I were actually talking on the phone. We were texting. We had this relationship of total transparency once we found out what was going on, and we were sharing everything. That was a fantastic experience for me, and I'm so glad that we were able to develop that kind of rapport, because it really made me see him clearly. Had that not happened for me, I probably would have been inclined to believe his excuses and lies, because I didn't know what all was going on. All I could go off of was the nonsense that he had told me. So here's the thing too, though. Yes. Okay. So like King Koopa is saying, the new supply is not going to listen. And this is very true. And this has to do with cognitive dissonance, right? And so this is the whole cognitive dissonance thing, is how we, so I got to readjust on my futon. This thing is not comfortable. Okay. The whole thing with cognitive dissonance is it's how we justify our behaviors. So human beings as a whole, we need our thoughts and excuse me here. There, better. We need our thoughts and our behaviors to line up. And so if they don't line up, then we experience a high level of distress. And so it's really important, for those two things to line up. If when they don't line up, which happens all the time, right, in abusive relationships, then people will generally, justify, minimize, rationalize, deny, blame. They will do whatever they need to do in order to get their thoughts to match up with their behaviors. And so, for example, this is what this looks like in motion. So, for example, the new supply is now dating what they believe to be a really Prince Charming or Princess Charming, right? This absolutely fantastic person who is their soulmate, who, is just this perfect partner for them. That's all that they are seeing. And so, and they might be telling themselves, and well, in order for me to stay with this perfect partner, that they have to believe that this perfect partner is this certain way, right? That they are honest and on a level, and that they really indeed are their soulmate. If they get information that contradicts that, right? If they get information that says, hey, you know what? Actually, this guy's been married 4 times and he's got 6 kids that he's not telling you about, or he's cheating on you, or he's a bank robber, or something like that. They're not going to want to hear that, because it doesn't line up with them staying in the relationship. Because they're going to be telling themselves, well, if I believe, if I take on this new belief that this person is a liar and a manipulator and not what they say that they are, then that also would mean I can't stay with them. Therefore, they're not my soulmate. And so people want to believe, just like we all were there, right? Like we all saw red flags, but we wanted so much to believe that that nobody was perfect, that we were being too critical. Our own cognitive dissonance was kicking in. We were justifying those red flags so we could continue in the relationship, because when the good times are good, they're really good. And so that's why the new supply is probably not going to want to listen to you. So if you do want to contact them, all you can do is to acknowledge that basically they're in cognitive dissonance. So you can say to them, well, you're probably not going to believe me, because I wouldn't have believed anybody else had they said this to me. But here's the deal: this guy's problematic. This is what I experienced when I was with him. I'm not saying it because I'm a crazy, bitter, angry ex. I'm not saying it because I want him back. I definitely don't. Again, you're probably not going to believe this, but I just want you to know that if you start experiencing some of this, that it is problematic. And I would encourage you to go look it up on YouTube, or go look, on Facebook or whatever, and then kind of walk away. And hopefully they'll make their way here, and they'll figure it out sooner than later. Oh, hey, Martine's here. Okay, let's see. What other questions? Me, myself says, all of this is a really jagged pill to swallow. No joke, I know. Okay, so Gerald says, hey, I need some advice. Go for it. And we will see what we can do. Okay. Overcoming Understanding says, gotta go. Good night. We'll see you next week, maybe. So she says, thanks again for an awesome chat room. Thank you so much. And you guys too, Overcoming Understanding has her own channel on YouTube for narcissism. You could show her some love and subscribe to her channel. So, lots of questions coming in. Let's see. What is the best way to contact me? The best way to contact me is really in through one of my support groups. Email. I'm way past the ability to even answer all the emails that I get at this time, but I'm in all of my support groups every single day. So Martine, could you post I don't know if you can. Let me see if I can post a link. Oh gosh. Okay. I just posted a link to my support group on my website, which also has the link to the group on Facebook, and it explains it. So yes, live streams are every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I think is 3 hours later than Pacific Standard Time, if I remember correctly. So that's 5:30 p.m. your time Wednesdays. Let's see. Okay. I think I got it, Martine. I was trying to figure out if I could post a link on here for them. Let's see. Adrian says, Overcoming Understanding, you know a lot. You can help Dana with missed questions. Yeah. So this is, you know, this is what this live stream is all about. I mean, it's all about question and answer, and it's all about getting support. And my opinion is my opinion, and it's limited. So that's kind of the benefit of the whole community. And I strongly encourage you, especially those of you that do have your own YouTube channels, feel free to promote yourself, to talk about it, to network and all of it. So it's this isn't about just kind of me and my channel and me rambling on for 2 hours, even though it might feel that way, but it's really not. It's about connecting and just supporting other people and kind of whatever they need. So, okay, Gerald, fantastic question. He says, I've watched your videos, and a lot of the red flags you've posted I saw in her, but it also scares me because I saw some of them in myself. Great question. So the thing with the red flags is that they're red flags of problematic behavior. And so it's not that the red flags all equal up to a person being a narcissist. It's sort of like narcissists and sociopaths tend to have a lot of these red flags, But other people also have some of these red flags, right? So, like, for example, um, let's see, hypersexuality, right? A lot of people are hypersexual. It doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist or a sociopath. It just means that they're hypersexual. A lot of codependent people are also hypersexual. So, a lot of these red flags, kind of the flip side to this, is also kind of a lot of, codependency stuff coming out too. It's a lot of the same red flags, but for different reasons. So if you're concerned, if you're seeing problematic behavior within yourself, and you're like, "Yikes! This is me, this is me, this is me," and I will be honest with you, when as I was making these videos, there was a couple of them where I was thinking the exact same thing to myself. I'm like, "This is describing me. Oh no!" And I had to stop, and I had to kind of do a gut check and be like, "Okay, do I have empathy? Do I have remorse? If I knew my behavior was hurting other people, would I stop? Would I be open to change?" And the answer across the board was yes. And so that's kind of a quick gut check way that you can just kind of see, like, okay, because narcissists and sociopaths tend to not care that they have problematic behavior. So if you care, then that's a fantastic sign, because it means that you're open to change. So, okay, Gerald says, "I think I am codependent. If I'm going to be honest, I'm going to seek therapy with a college therapist." So, I think that's fantastic. Lots of people out there, do struggle with this. And frankly, by and large, it's because healthy, emotional health is not taught. It's not taught. So, I would say that the vast majority of people out there, are have some sort of issue with boundaries, either narcissists or more on the codependent side of the spectrum. So I think that's really great. And I wanting to start a series more on codependency. I just have been kind of at a crossroads with how to approach it, but I do plan on doing that. B Major asks, "Dana, are you dating? Is there hope?" So I do date occasionally. And yeah, there totally is hope. There totally is hope. So here's the thing with dating after this is, you know I think kind of the gift in dating a narcissist or dating multiple narcissists or sociopaths is that they really bring attention to something that's probably been going on in our lives for a long, long time. And they're sort of like the house fire that we cannot ignore. When the reality is, there's probably been smoke in our house for a long time that we've just gotten used to. And so, the big gift for me, what I went through in this, was really learning to trust my intuition and trust my judgment in people and in situations. And so, there's lots of lessons learned, because again, stuff's not taught, and so you have to kind of just go through it and learn it the hard way. And so a lot of the things that especially us empaths or codependents struggle with is, we all tend to kind of think that that other people in the world are like us. And so, if our intentions are kind and good and decent, we assume that other people's intentions are kind and good and decent. And we might think to ourselves, well, yeah, sure, there's bad people out there in the world, but we all think that we'll be able to spot them. And so it takes us kind of encountering more of the sociopath or a covert narcissist to realize we really can't spot, that there are those wolves in sheep's clothing out there. And so, it's a really, really hard lesson to learn, but it's, the benefit for me is it's really made me aware that I had some self-esteem issues going on, and that I thought I had pretty healthy boundaries, but I didn't. And, that I didn't trust my judgment. And so what's cool about this is that it's not just in dating. Okay, so I was having these problems kind of throughout my life. So with careers, with friends, with kind of throughout my life, I had just started settling for crumbs. I was making these relationships and friendships and careers and all these different things that weren't a good fit, that were maybe like a 4 out of 10 on that fulfillment scale that I was talking about. I was trying to make those work for me, and focusing on why I should be grateful that I have anything, right? And so I would encourage you to do some reflection and to ask yourself, are you settling for crumbs in other areas? Because that kind of mentality is pervasive, and it goes over into all areas of our lives. And so, but the cool thing is, once you have that awareness of it, right? Like, once you know better, then you can start doing better. And so once you become aware of, yeah, like, I have really been settling for a lot of, I've had a lot of like one-sided friendships or one-sided relationships or jobs that weren't fulfilling, or I've worked way below my potential, or these kinds of things. Once you're aware of that, then you can start, you know, treating yourself better, and making better decisions. And so one of my favorite questions with this, with kind of life after a narcissist, is to continually be asking yourself, you know, how can you treat yourself with value today? And being continually treating yourself with value. And at first, that might feel really narcissistic, right? Like, to make it all about you. But, it's not all about you at the expense of somebody else. I guess that's the difference. It's all, treating yourself with value, because if you don't treat yourself with value, then other people won't either. So that's kind of that. Let's see. And here's kind of the thing too, like, with treating yourself with value, is pretty much like, it's such a ripple effect. Like, there really is no such thing as small change. So any problematic behavior in your life will be solved by asking yourself that question. Like, if you I mean, seriously, it's really, really powerful, because anything that we're doing that's out of alignment with who we really are will get effortlessly get back into alignment when we start treating ourselves with value. So it's, paying attention to how you're spending your money, paying attention to the kind of foods that you're eating. I mean, this can help you to get your weight in line and your finances in line, and getting you organized, and, having better friendships and better relationships, and just kind of everything starts like snapping into place in your life when you start treating yourself with value. Okay, so Okay, I will. So 25 cents worth says, Dana, please review your 9 out of 10 plan. Okay, I'm just going to repeat it again. So on the scale of fulfillment from 0 to 10, 10 being really fulfilled, right? Like those peak life experiences, go after experiences that are a 9 and higher, and relationships and friendships and jobs and whatever, because to do anything else is basically living a life of plan B. It's living a life of default. It's living a life that's not going to be fulfilling to you. So if something is really kind of, an 8 or less, then it might as well be a 0, because it's not going to be fulfilling. And so if you're having these experiences or these relationships, because, over time, things are going to be a little bit less, they're not going to probably stay at a 9 or 10. You're going to have to work to keep them at a 9 or a 10. But you can, do things to, once you really get connected to who you are, you can start interjecting that energy and that enthusiasm and that passion into, situations that are like an 8 or so, and making them into a 9 or a 10. So let's see. Okay, so Zero asks, how do you argue with somebody who claims narcissism is normal for men or women? You don't. Like, that sounds like an exercise in futility. I would say spend your time differently. You smile and nod, and then just go do something else is what I would do, because that's a waste of your time. And it's not normal, and they're not using they're using the more socially accepted definition of, narcissism, which is not, what we're talking about here. So Um, okay, Cecilia had mentioned a different group. Okay, so yeah, so here's the thing with support groups is I encourage people join a handful of them because you're again, this goes back to trusting your judgment, right? So, you know, join a handful and then see which ones really resonate the best with you because you might find that certain support groups that you think might really resonate with you don't. And so or you might find that you clash with certain members, and so that's why it's really important to kind of at least in the beginning not put all your eggs in one basket and really just kind of just see what's a good fit for you. You will know, right? You will. That's the beauty of it. You will know. So um okay, Gerald asked, could somebody be a mix of borderline personality and narcissist? Yes. So there's lots of like dual diagnoses, and again, it tends to be most women are the ones that are diagnosed as borderline, and most men are diagnosed as narcissist. So you'd probably be hard pressed to find a guy who was diagnosed, or a male or female that was diagnosed with both of those disorders. But yeah, it's actually very, very common that people have, especially when you're talking personality disorder stuff, to have probably anywhere from like 3 to 6 different diagnoses. And again, part of it is, part of it's billing. So they can only bill so many therapy sessions for a certain diagnoses. They might be throwing in extra ones in order to get that person some more therapy. There's a lot more that goes on with diagnoses than just the quote unquote truth of a diagnosis. So, which I think is problematic, because then if you have a patient or a client that sees their diagnoses, they're like, oh my god, like I really need help, right? Like I have like 6 different personality disorders or mental illness type things that are going on here, and that is like intense for a lot of people. But they could just be classified in different areas, and there's kind of more stuff going on there sometimes. What do I think about emotional vampires? I think that they are very, very real, and I I would say that that's probably terminology that a lot of people tend to use when they're in an abusive relationship. So, especially because we all have these ideas of what an abusive relationship is. So, a lot of people think that an abusive person is a man and that a victim is a woman, and that it's only abusive if the man is hitting the woman in the face and leaving bruises, right? And so, you know, they if it doesn't fit that, then they don't see that it's abusive, and so they're going to use terms like, this is a toxic relationship, or this person's an emotional vampire or an energy vampire. Especially if this person's like a friend or a coworker, but the reality is it's abuse. They're just not it's not just they're not understanding it as abuse because it doesn't fit their dynamic of what they think abuse is. So uh, yes, I am watching you, and watching all of you guys with the chat as much as I possibly can. It's kind of like trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. It's hard to read and talk at the same time. Ooh, that is a great question. Peace Pom Pom says, "Hi Dana. Someone else asked a great question earlier. How do you balance sharing information with new people and protecting your values, your qualities from being mirrored back to you?" Well, you go slow. So, when you're getting to know somebody, you just let them, you just open up slowly. And so, it's just kind of small talk at first, and you pay attention to how do you feel and what kind of vibes are you getting, and don't feel pressured to give out any information that you're not comfortable giving out. If you're feeling if they're starting to talk about really deep stuff right off the bat, don't feel pressured to match those same deep stories. And if you have a funny feeling about them, if you're feeling confused or suspicious or concerned, or if you just have that funny feeling that something's off, it's time to take a few steps back and then just kind of examine their behavior. So, a great what actually the book that we're reading for the book club for the month of January is the book The Gift of Fear. And it's a fantastic book. I'm about halfway through it right now, and it talks a lot about different kind of warning signs of problematic people. And so, if you go to my website, which is narcissistsupport.com, and you go on to the support group, so narcissistsupport.com/forum, FORUM, you'll see that there's a link to the book on Amazon, if which has the title and everything. But if you click the link, it's an Amazon affiliate link, which means like I get like 20 cents, which goes to funding the site. But you don't have to buy the book through there. And actually, it's free if you are an Amazon Kindle Unlimited person, like I am, if you read a lot. So just that. Let's see. Okay, lots and lots of questions here. Uh, okay, so Cecilia was kind of talking a little bit about boundaries. Um, you know, and a good way to tell if your boundaries have been violated is to pay attention to how you feel. It all goes back to really how you're feeling. So if you're feeling frustrated, angry, resentful, hurt, confused, violated, these are all feelings of when you've had your boundaries crossed. And so, only you, because other people don't know where your boundaries are. And so that's kind of the thing with boundaries, is we all have to set them because other people may or may not share in the same boundaries, right? And so if a person's violating your boundaries, then it's up to you to kind of restore that again back into alignment. And so, that might mean being assertive with somebody and saying, hey, you know what, I'm really not okay with being talked to like that. Or that's not an appropriate question, so I'm not going to answer it. Or kind of just setting them straight. The next part of that is then taking some sort of action. So if they continue to violate your boundary, if they continue to call you names or to make you uncomfortable, then you take some sort of action, right? So, and kind of whatever that might be. So maybe you block them on Facebook. Maybe you, you know, uh, just stay really busy. Maybe you distance yourself completely. It's kind of whatever you feel is what you need to do with that. Um, okay, Cece's Revenge asks, I don't know if there's more to the question, but why do mothers go behind your back even as an adult? I don't know if like I said, I don't know if I missed. Okay, yeah, narc moms always violate your boundaries. Okay, so that's the distinction there because not all moms go behind your back, right? It's narcissist mothers go behind your back, and they do that because they're narcissists. So it's who they are. So it's they're trying to get their own way. They're trying to kind of manipulate or control or they're just trying to control that situation. There isn't really respect for other people there, right? So narcissists and abusive people, they don't like boundaries because they want to be able to do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, as much as they want to do it. So so yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so here's another point I want to bring up. So you're talking about, okay, this is your mom and this is the kind of stuff that she does, and it's really hurtful. And so here's the deal with stuff like that. So if you're growing up, if you're observing any type of situation, to me, we have two different types of role models out there. Okay, we have people that role model really good behavior, and we think to ourselves, that's really awesome. And then we have what I call reverse role models, which are people that model really bad behavior. And so it's important. So like, as you know, you're growing up, and as we're all, and I don't know how old you are, but as we're, you know, getting older and you're starting your own family and doing these things, to really be aware of kind of the good role models that you have and had in life and have in life, and the reverse role models that you have. And so you can then do the exact opposite. So you know, oh, you're 51. Okay. Well, so then, but you can still use the same principle, right? So like, okay, so if she's doing this, and if you have children, to be to pay extra attention, to be like, I'm not going to do that, because a lot of them, you know, oh wait, hold on a second. We've got somebody, um, you know, I'm sorry. I got a troll in there for a second. Um, yeah, so just being mindful of kind of what works for us and how we want to be treated and how we want to treat other people, and to just bring that to our conscious awareness, because a lot of us, if we've grown up in homes like that, we have some, we pick up some bad habits. It's just kind of how we were brought up, and so a lot of it's normal to us and we don't realize otherwise. So, it's a good rule of thumb to just kind of set your compass towards treating other people with compassion and dignity, no matter who they are. And even if they've done really rotten things, to still treat them with compassion and dignity. And I know that that's not easy, but it will help you to reduce the anger that you are carrying with you. And it just helps us to avoid becoming problematic people ourselves, if we just kind of just, and life is so much easier when we just treat others with compassion and dignity. So yes, Cece, you're so very welcome. I glad glad I could, it was a great question. So um okay, Maddie asks, Dana, anything you can say about narcissists using the threat of leaving to manipulate? So they do that a lot. If you're in a, well, really any type of dynamic, but especially in like a relationship type dynamic, they will really feed into the victim's biggest fears. And so if your fear is that you don't want to get divorced or that you don't want them to leave, then it's not uncommon for them to throw that at you and say, well, there's lots of women or men or whatever that would love to be with somebody like me. And it's, so, you're the problem, and you're too demanding, and you're asking too much. And, why do you have to be so difficult? And it's because of all your insecurities that you're the one that's really ending this relationship. And so they really spin that, and will put it back on the victim. And then the victim feels like, oh no, I really need to be on my best behavior because I don't want them to leave. And so that's what's called walking on eggshells. And so a lot of victims will do this because they think if they can modify or change their behavior, that they can in turn change their partner's behavior. So if their partner is yelling or name calling or cheating or doing these kinds of things, then the victim might think, well, if because the manipulative abusive partner is saying, well, it's because I'm under a lot of stress and that's why I yell, or it's because you're so jealous and insecure, that this is you're driving me away, these kinds of things, that the victim doesn't, they start to lose track of kind of what's real, because they don't want their partner to leave, but there's a part of them that understands that what they're experiencing is not normal behavior. And so it's our cognitive dissonance that we're denying and justifying this bad behavior to ourselves, but we're not aware that we're doing it because we're being manipulated. So it's very, very, very confusing. But yes, the manipulation of quit being so jealous, you know quit trying to catch me in all of my bad behavior, because you're going to make me leave, is really what it is. Okay. So yeah, somebody was yeah, hi, yes, asking about dignity or compassion. Did Ted Bundy deserve dignity and compassion? I personally believe that every living creature deserves dignity and compassion. And I know that that's really controversial, but you know, I think for them to treat us abusive and then for us to treat them abusively, then it's if the problem isn't them, right? It's abusive behavior that's the problem. And so then we're no better than they are if we're abusive. So I'm not saying that we need to have them in our life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that by treating them with compassion and dignity. Compassion and dignity, again, treating all living creatures with compassion and dignity means treating ourselves with compassion and dignity too. And so it's I can have another human being who is highly destructive, and treating them with compassion and dignity just means, in that case, it would be cutting them out of my life completely and not reopening contact, and not allowing them to make me feel anger and hatred, and not allowing those and not allowing that to destroy my life. So yeah, I guess that is a little bit. Yes, dignity and compassion from a long distance, behind a closed door that I nail shut. So, yeah, it's got to be, putting yourself first, and but thank you for that clarification, because I don't want people to think that compassion and dignity means allowing them to stay in your life and cause destruction. It definitely does not mean that. Yes, I would agree completely. I don't open contact, she says. Cutting them off before they even start is what is curing me. Yep, exactly. So as soon as you start spotting problematic behavior, it's just like, you know, done. There's like like 5 billion people on the planet. Why we focus on holding on to one or two is beyond me. And so, yeah, Doug is saying it's really hard to treat people kindly after they have abused you to the point that you lose so much in your life. And that's the thing, though, Doug, is a lot of times they thrive off of that negative energy. It gives them power to know that that they're so important that they can ruin our lives. And so that's kind of the added benefit of treating people with compassion and dignity, is it allows your heart not to get hardened. It allows you to kind of take the higher ground. It's a win-win all the way around. It allows you to take the higher ground. It allows their bad behavior to it allows a wonderful contrast for their really bad behavior, because anybody else can see, here's this person that's not stooping to their level, they're not name calling, they're not doing these things, and it's it just, just to say, like, I cannot do this, like, I just, peace out. Like, I'm done. So M. Fisher says narcs really like to play that dignity and compassion card if we're not careful. And so, yeah, they do. And so then that's why I would encourage you to tell them, like, you know, this goes back to the whole thing with forgiveness, right? So a lot of them will really be like, oh, well, if you really forgive me, then you'd give me a second chance, or a 20-second chance, or you'd let me back in your life, or I'd move back in, or you're not a good Christian, or a good Muslim, or a good Jewish person, or a good Buddhist, or whatever, if you don't forgive me and let me have access back to your life. But then the response would be, you know, I I will treat you with compassion and dignity. But I also have to treat myself with compassion and dignity, which means I don't allow myself to be talked to this way or treated this way. And so I wish you well, but you are not welcome in my life, you know, into discussion. And so this is the thing too with abusive people, is they tend to hang on. And so I was reading in that book, The Gift of Fear today, he was talking about, the people that hang on. It's like abusive people hang on to relationships. And he says something along the lines of, if you've told a person 10 times to quit contacting you or to quit bothering you, you've told them 9 times too many. And I really, really liked that, because that's exactly what they do. They try to get under your skin, and they try to stay there because it's their way of trying to hang on and to have some sort of relationship, even if their relationship dynamic with you is that you guys are now enemies. And so you just need to assert that boundary once and then walk away and never reopen contact. Um, yeah, me myself says my response to somebody who asks me for another chance is that you had your chance. Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines. I just really don't have much tolerance for abusive behavior at all. There's no reason for it. Um, there's just no, life's too short. There's too many people out there. I um Okay, so M. Fisher is talking about smear campaigns. Smear campaigns are really difficult and extremely hard to ignore. Um, and yes, and so really all you can do in those kinds of situations is to talk to the other people and say, you know what, there's two sides to every story. I guarantee you that my side is very different from what you're hearing. You seem like a mature, reasonable, rational human being. I'm sure that you can see that there's probably two sides to the story. So I would encourage you to like not believe everything that you're hearing. And the people that are really, your friends and really open minded are going to be the ones that are going to reserve judgment and listen to both sides. They're not going to be so quick to go against you. Gerald asks, what are the common signs of a covert narcissist? Covert narcissists, I think, tend to be very charming. Kind of, again, think of like Bill Cosby. So they tend to be very charming, very likable, very social. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They tend to really, there's a saying out there that the best hiding place for evil is behind good. And that really is the covert narcissist. So on the surface, they are very good. They tend to be active, volunteer with stuff, or active with animals, or with children, or in churches. Or I would say my grandfather was a covert narcissist. He was a minister, and you know had many many affairs. And my grandmother was possibly a child molester. I mean, he was a really horrible human being, and uh, I don't think anybody really believed her except for my mom, who saw it. So really really sad. But other than that, it's the same selfishness. It's the same lack of empathy, lack of remorse, which tends to come across. I mean, most people don't use that terminology, so it tends to come across to other people as more of a jaw dropping lack of indifference. So, for example, it would be something like a covert narcissist coming home and announcing that they want a divorce and they want their partner and their children to move out of the house. Like that kind of a thing where you're like, you've got to be kidding me. Or um or like they will be cheating and doing all kinds of bad behavior, and then they're focused on trying to get alimony from their spouse. Like just really selfish, jaw-dropping kind of behavior. So to the outside world, they look like a really great person. And that's what's so horrible about abuse. And somebody had asked about this on the support group earlier, was they weren't sure kind of what to do, because the good times were really good. And they were confused. They were saying that the abuse was intermittent, is the words that they used. And the reality is, abuse tends to always be intermittent. It it's kind of this Hollywood myth, this whole like sleeping with the enemy idea of that this person's just an obviously bad looking person, and they're just a jerk the whole time. Like that's very rarely the case. They often tend to go from being really, really charming and likable and, you know, apologetic and believable and all that. And then they go back to being really, really abusive in some sort of way, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially, verbally, spiritually, you name it. And then that's the cycle. It goes round and round and round. Okay, Maddie asks, anyone else experience their narcissist seeming to take joy out of making them angry and winding them up on purpose? Oh, you betcha. That is their MO. They really enjoy that because it gives them attention. It makes them feel significant of that they got a rise out of us. And so that is really part of the crazy making thing for a lot of victims. It's just this feeling of a lot of victims want to stay in that dynamic to prove to their abusive person, look at what you're doing. Like, look at what you're doing. Like, you're doing this because it's so crazy making. It's like, it's not me. Quit saying that it's me. Like, this is what you're doing. And they have a hard time walking away because they just want that validation of just see what you're doing. But the narcissist cannot, will not see it. And it's absolutely infuriating. But yeah, they, of course they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they you know, they thrive off of that. Let's see, Gerald's talking about narcissists overlapping relationships. They always do. Generally, they generally always do. It's kind of like they always have a pipeline of what we call supply, quote unquote supply. And so a person that's being used for supply is being used for some form of, you know, food, clothing, shelter, you know, sex, money, you know, significance, those kinds of things. And so that's why their choices and partners don't really make sense either. So they could go for one person that is, you know, maybe like really out of their league financially or appearance wise, and you know the next partner is like the exact opposite, and it's very confusing to other people, but that's why, because they're targeting people based off of what they can get out of them, not because that they want to actually be with that person. And yes, they don't connect in relationships at all. It's well, actually, maybe I shouldn't say not. I mean, maybe some. I don't even. I don't really think any of them do. But they use people. It's. I was talking to a therapist friend of mine today at work, and we were talking about narcissists and sociopaths, and he had made the comment. I thought it was fantastic. He said, we were talking about attaching, and he had recently heard this, and he's like, yeah, it's sort of like when you blow your nose into a Kleenex and then you throw the Kleenex away. We don't get attached to the Kleenex. And that's exactly like how they are with their victims. It's like a dirty Kleenex. It's done. It's served its purpose. Next. Like that. And that's so painful to hear or to even think about, but it's true. Like they truly don't care, and they're on to the next person, and they are just oblivious to the fallout, the damage that they do in people's lives, even to their own children. They don't care. Is it common for them to cry uncontrollably? My ex cried a lot. We dated for, let's say, 500 days. I would say she cried at least 300 of those days. Uh, if she really is narcissistic, if she was crying that much, it would be for like manipulation. They tend to not cry because they don't really, there's not that level of like empathy or attachment to things. Not to say that she couldn't have had other stuff going on with her. I mean, you know, she could be highly manipulative, and she could be bipolar, or and she could be depressed, and she could, you know what I mean? Like she could have multiple things going on, which could explain why she was crying that much. But that, yeah, that's excessive. I don't know why anybody would be crying that much. Model Mayhem says crocodile tears. Yeah, the crocodile tears is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. I had never seen an adult fake cry before. Jack was the first person I saw that with, and very it just like I didn't even know what to say to it. It was just this. I think I told him just finally like just stop. Like it was so weird. Um, they're just actors. They're just actors. Weird, weird stuff. Well, okay, guys, let's call it a night here shortly. Um, let's see, is anything? Oh, here's something totally random. I am thinking about changing the name of my website to something that's maybe something a little bit more positive. So the focus isn't so much on the narcissist, but more on us. And was just kind of wanting to get you guys' opinion about that. If you guys have any ideas for names for a website, um, domain names, let me know. And yeah, so you can post them here in the comments as you think of them or in the support group if you're in one of the support groups. Get the name Narcissist Victim Support. Okay, that's better than what I have. Yeah. Narc Ass Kickers. That's that was definitely more empowering. Yes. Um, Narcissistic Abuse Support. Yeah, I like that. M. Fisher says, let's don't support, let's heal. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like something that's more, um, yeah, like empowering and just, um, yeah, something that's just more empowering, I guess. So, if you guys, as you guys are thinking of names, I'm also on Instagram. I am new to, fairly new to Instagram, and my name there is narcissist underscore support. So if you have any ideas too, um, you know, you can always contact me on Instagram. That's my new favorite website right now. I'm totally hooked. So, oh, so Martine is saying it's good though because when people are researching narcissism, they do connect to the word narcissist. I agree completely, and that's kind of been the challenge. But I will keep like a tagline or something from my site that says, you know, for survivors of narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, so people know kind of what it's for. Because I don't want to. I want to just have survivors of this. I don't really want kind of like the general public because they're not going to understand. So it does need to be somewhat specific. Doug is saying, what is the link to your Instagram? I don't have Instagram, but I would like to look in. Um, okay, M. Fisher says, I don't understand Instagram. I did not either for like the longest time. And now I'm hooked. It's kind of like Pinterest, but it's there's like a feed with it, kind of like Twitter. So, um, that's cute. Model Mayhem says, "Who are you gonna call? Narc Busters." So that would be a cute name. C. Megan asks, Dana, do you have any guided meditations or positive affirmations? I have been working on something along those lines, and I would like to put something out. So it's more of me figuring out how to line up like vocals and music. But that is something that I'm working on. So I will let you guys know as soon as I do. Because if you know, you probably see my Buddha board here in the back, and I have a ton of like affirmations, and I'm really, really big about stuff like that. I mean, it played a huge role for me in healing. So that is something that if you know I would love to put out there if you guys think it would help you too. Um, so I was gonna give you a link to my Instagram, but I think it's Instagram.com/narcissist_support. Um, Let me see if I can go. I don't know if I can go there. So, Martine says vocals. Why? Um, well, I guess in my mind, I was thinking that a guided meditation or affirmations, it would have like nice music in the background, and then it would have me just speaking the vocals of like the affirmations. But, um, you know, that was what I had in mind. But I could just give you guys a list of different affirmations that I have. I guess that would be a start, an easier start. Um, oh, let's see. Can I add the link to the YouTube channel? I think this is my. I don't know if you were talking to me, but that's the link to YouTube. You should make a hub, a place where you gather all links. That's a great idea. Yes, I should. Can I give my opinion on that? Yes, please. Of course. Martine, you don't have to ask. Martine, you don't have to ask. I'm going to try to find my Instagram. Oh, Martine says just the voice is mostly very pleasant. Okay, so you're not wanting music. You're just wanting voice. That's interesting. I could do there's my a link to my Instagram account. Um I would not have guessed that you would find just the voice relaxing. Adrian says, Dana, if you buy the YouTube Red subscription, you can download videos to your phone or PC. I thought you could do that anyhow. Like, do you have to subscribe to YouTube Red? I don't know. There's so much I still need to learn. It's crazy. I would agree. Model Mayhem says Instagram is better than Twitter. There's more hashtags. Um, and okay, yeah, okay. See, Megan, we are so on the same page. Yes, you can do one vocals only and one with music. I recommend the binaural beats. That's exactly what I was looking into. There's some really cool stuff going on with that. Okay, interesting. These people are coming up with some really creative names. Ernie says the name Narc 'em Out. That's cute. Um, yeah, we could play around with like different formats, I guess, and do vocals and then just do music and see. So, and yes, I write and I do write a lot more on Instagram. I don't do Twitter. I don't understand Twitter. Whatever goes on Twitter is like an auto posts from my website. Um, so yeah, that's kind of limited. But Martine says you can overlay the music easy. Martine, you can overlay the music really easy. I struggle so much with understanding a lot of the technology. So, not the easiest thing for me. You are like one of my techie resources type people. So, I guess if I get stuck, I'll contact you. But yeah, Instagram is really fun if you guys haven't been on there because you can uh, really just follow different hashtags and explore different posts, and it's neat. And speaking of guided imagery and all of this with these different meditations and stuff, there's a guy, I think his name is Jason Stevenson. He does guided imagery and relaxation stuff, and that's fantastic if you're having trouble sleeping at night. It's just a great way to like just calm down and just just let the day go. So, oh, you guys are funny. Michael Seeley, maybe that's who I'm thinking of. Okay, no, Jason Stevenson is a real person. He does exist. I have listened to both of those guys, and they're both fantastic. Yes, yes. So, highly recommend them. Even after like, your PTSD kind of stuff goes away, it's still a really nice way to just end the night and just center yourself and go to bed. So, the names Jason Stevenson and Michael Seeley. So, those are two of the names. Okay, guys, I've got to go to bed. It's late. So, yeah, we'll look into doing some guided imagery and stuff like that for sure. So, um, oh, Martinez, who's Jason Stevenson is the guy, and Michael Seeley. So, okay, good night, guys, and lots of love to you. Okay, so you know you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal. And yes, okay, see, Megan, yes, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about next time. So she wants to talk about body dysmorphia. We can do that. And the comments should all be available to view later for sure. So happy New Year, you guys. Just lots of love, lots and lots of love to you. Just sending lots of light and love. And take care, and I will talk to you soon, okay? Okay, good night.